All right, welcome everybody. Day 15, season 1. So, where did we get? Last episode, previously on Call to Freak, we got to the point where we showed the IKFK blending. I haven't done work of stream. I literally, before opening this stream, I renamed a couple nodes. This lot here. That's pretty much it. There's nothing else that was done. So, um, if you're, following the stream, I mean, you get what you get every day, or at least every day that I stream. If you're watching these on YouTube, we are gonna recomponentize the rig because we're getting to that point. It feels like where the leg is in a decent enough shape. At some point, we'll want to expand some of these components to do more work. Somebody was saying it'd be cool to do another guide. Well, several people did, and I do intend to guide the leg because the leg is an interesting property. Also does the foot, but the foot itself isn't really guided. Only the foot roll is. The foot doesn't really need to. And yeah, we gotta have a look at that. So, and that is, sorry, when I say an interesting property, is like there are several options for how you want the controls to behave, mirrored or not. So once you have left and right, what do? Do you mirror both so that when you move the IK, the one on the other side is going to be mirrored, like reflectively symmetrical, or you move them both forward for the IK so that, if you move them right, they both move right, which, like, for the IK, I'm inclined to say normally you should do that, and so we should do that, whereas for the FK, if you mirror the rotations, like the way FK is used, maybe more so for the arms than the legs. The legs spending a good amount of time in IK for most of the movie usually, unless you're doing a movie about martial arts or acrobatics, it's less relevant. But anyway, so we're gonna have a look at those problems now. There is not a lot I want to change right now. In fact, I don't think we're gonna make any significant changes, barring one. So we are gonna repopulate our components, track where we are, recap a bit, move things around. And in the pilot season, I did show what I normally use assets for, which is largely for encapsulation, a little bit of publishing and controlling the outliner. We are gonna do some of that work here so that we are better prepared to move on when we want to revise the components. And previously we imported the god node so that that hark back to why I encapsulate that way makes it so easy to export and import components. So chat, I am trusting you to let me know if there are audio problems or anything else. Otherwise, otherwise I am gonna just soldier on with this one. So, movements wise, let's take stock of what we have. We have the leg global, which is the pre-fly, the front-loaded stuff for everything we want, which is mostly configuring the IK and configuring part of the leg. We'll have to look at whether we want to move some of these attributes around or not, but for the time being, not a huge deal. We can keep things as they are. Now, we do have the global control for the leg because we're using it to shortcut a few things, and it's not a bad idea inside the leg global. That's okay. I do not love, we have the roll mechanics in there, which are also needed to form the IK. I am okay with that as well. I do not love the up vector being out in the actual leg, and this locator is just acting as a buffer for a guide kind of situation. We're gonna have a look at that. I think it's just literally just moving the buffer for our control. So either we bring both of these back into the leg itself, so we will bring the one that's in leg global in there, or we bring these into the leg global component. And I am inclined to say that I want to do that because I would like to have a front loaded thing where I can set things up for both the FK and the IK. So what we need to do for that is fairly simple. We should only need to have a look. So 0 gets you, let me No shapes, please. I have no shapes in every other tab. Stop opening with no shapes. It's probably an option. I should deal with it. Widen it. So it only has sources, which makes it fairly easy. That's good. And the up vector control only goes out to stuff in the leg. So, and this is another reason why I like to work this way, I guess. Well, this is just, you know, select something, zero out here, so you only get those two nodes, and then start widening and see what's happening. You can tell there's a very linear chain coming into the SRT buffer, and there is a very linear chain going out from the up vector control. So here's the thing. If we move this to the leg global, we need to add whatever it is that we're using here to the interface. Is that going to be a problem? It doesn't seem so at all. So we should be able to do that, no problem. Now the buffer, leg global ankle reparent. So see, this is where we were, and we might have some orphan nodes. We'll have a look at that as well. We'll try and do a little bit of cleanup. So we were going straight from the leg global reparent to something that is in the leg without going through the interface, which is okay. I expect we'll find a couple of these things along the way. So moving these to the leg global is literally just reparent and rename, and we should be good. Then we need to see if we want to include that. Moving these requires that we add to the interface if we want to stay true to our parameters. So what do we need to add to this interface? This is the input for the leg component. I do need to start renaming these things. We might take a shot at that as well. We'll see. And so okay, this is charcoal open up. So if you don't know what this is, charcoal editor, it's a replacement for the Maya script editor. It's pretty damn good. It's not free, but I think there's a trial, or maybe even a free license with limited features. I think there's a free license with limited features, but don't quote me on it. It's well worth it if you're learning to script and you want to stay in Maya for convenience. It is really good. I am not sponsored, for the record. I know, sort of know, internet know the person that writes it, and that's about it. So, what do we want to call it? Let's call it up vector frame. Our naming convention is all over the place, but at this point I'm more interested in labeling and cataloging things than having everything perfect, and should add it to that. So, to make these a proper God-fearing component, we don't have a ton to do here. Let's keep these sorry for that. Let's keep this clean. So we can do, we'll sort things out later. We can do these and these, and it becomes a pass-through. Alright, that really needed that lowering. The microphone gain to 0. Sorry for that. So we do leg global, leg. So we do want to rename right away to avoid surprises. One object matches name. That's interesting. We do have a leg global up vector. I couldn't rename these. Leg K up vector, leg K up vector. That is very interesting. There might be a node in the leg global or something, I guess. So let's, no, don't do that. Let's move those inside the control. Okay, so still working. Now we are not breaking boundaries anymore. We only have bad names to deal with. We don't really need to call it up because in the context of the leg global, that is basically just something that we're offering. We might be using it for other things as well, such as the guide. So what am I doing here? So okay, this seems good. We fixed an interface. I don't love that these are named the way they are. I'm wondering. So these are like called like that. They have a 1. There must have been some duplication going wrong, or I'm reusing names that I should not be reusing, because there are ankle reparent and ankle reparent in the leg global like that, and I'm wondering if they're now orphan node. Do we want to do it? So let's pin these. Let's have a look at what my daughter says I. So let's bring them in at 1. I don't know if you guys can hear her. She's getting pretty close to first words, I guess. So what is this fishing from? Because this might be interesting. So okay. This looks like duplicated work that we do not need to duplicate. Yeah, she does sound like she's in a good... She seems to be in a good mood for now. She just fed, which makes her sound like a vampire, but she's not. She does not drink blood yet. And input translate and input rotate. Is this all duplicate? Let's see. Locator 1. So this is moving the buffer around for the up vector. Or the ankle SVT buffer. Ankle reparent. So we have different offsets, I guess. Yes, we do. Okay, now this makes more sense. So this up vector is using an ankle reparent. So I clearly duplicated a couple nodes, and I did not rename them. So it's okay. This locator should be useless. It's only what we use as a guide in quotation, flying quotes, air quotes, whatever. So we might want to integrate it in the guide now that we're in a component that has one, and all we need to do with these is rename them, because they are using very different values from the other chains. Okay, not too bad. And we're calling this ankle reparent. What are we really doing here? We're getting an offset. We're long. So this is a straight up multiplication. Let global input. So it's taking the end word that's coming from the God node. Okay, that makes sense. So we can keep the name reparent. Yeah, it's a reframing more so than a reparent maybe. But I can live with it. We don't need to get super retentive about it. Let's go for that. And I need to get myself a couple scripts and bind them to keys. And as it would say that pick. Ankle offset. Do I love these? I can live with it. I don't love it, but I can live with it. The name does make sense. So this is, I guess, is going to be a pretty nodeling heavy stream. Not much we can do about it. Occasionally you just gotta bite the bullet and nodle away. So this is effectively a guide. Now it's interesting that it's not doing anything any longer. Why would that be? Maybe because I moved something around. I changed the quality. Okay, I get it. I think I get it. So this is just setting that offset for us. And these things, these offsets here are working in the space of the God node. I'd like to do a better job of that, so when we'll start... No, don't do that, Maya, please. When we'll start re-guiding stuff, we'll do it better. for now. And if I move this buffer now, this buffer is locked, that's good. Yeah, so somebody in chat just quoted a yet, and I don't remember what I said that ended in yet. What was it? Help me out here. So heap projector, we get this is like global going out to the input. That makes sense. Going out to the heap projection. So that seems good. Okay, yeah. Well, at some point it's gotta happen. So now the app vector is not following anything, and we should fix that. So what we did is we got the leg global to fish from the God node, and that is why our IK, I probably need to make the icons figure or something, but this is why the IK is working out that way. So what did we link it to this part? Nah, we linked it to this super uber God node part. Now we need to do the same for this clearly, so that it can follow around, and with these I mean it's buffer. Now there is bound to be a difference in here. Graphic, nothing. Ankle reparent, word ankle. So if I move these, I am not getting the result I expect from this. I need to figure this out. There you go. That is bizarre. Could have sworn I had moved them to the right places. I clearly did not do that. I must have misselected something. Who knows? So still working, that's good. I reckon this is where we start saving. And I should probably start naming these scenes like the days, but this is an old naming convention, it's just sticking around with me. So, as I said, not heavy in stream, we're recapping things, taking stock of what we have. This is the way it's gonna go for today. Now, so that is working now, was not before. Not super comfortable with that. I will like the only the control was not under the buffer. Okay, that's because it was flat parented. So this was working all along. The buffer was being moved. What was happening is that the control was being left behind. Good, we like that. We now know what's happening. It wasn't too dramatic. We have saved the scene. Let us move on. So that seems in good enough shape. I wish I brought in the God node componentize. I was showing that you can bring in with or without the componentization by selecting or not the asset. Now I have to recomponentize it. This is pretty trivial to do, and I might just re-export and re-import and save myself some time. So I say that we move from the edges in and leg component we'll leave alone for a little bit. Leg global seems like a good candidate to do work. Let's make sure that we understand what we're doing, or that we can at least pretend to understand what we're doing convincingly in a meeting. Prod SRT, don't love that we have a shape under these, but it's diagnostic, and I suspect we're gonna need it. How much cleanup do we want to do? I reckon we should go maybe not full hog, but partial hog for sure. So let's go partial hog and make sure that we have everything we need. Now another thing, if you do components a certain way, it becomes pretty easy to just use the outliner to do this kind of work, and you just put in leg global. If all of your DG nodes, like the ones that do not have a DAG presence, are named that way, you pick them up, If you have things like control and things that are not prefixed by diagnodes are not prefixed by the component name because they're under one that is basically establishing that, you are gonna be good. So, and then it makes it really easy to do this and figure out what is going on. I like it a lot personally. Now this has got like global component and it's got other like global stuff underneath, so row control row mechanics and so on are included between the two. That's why you see them. Bear in mind that input and output being input and output config parameters, anim parameters and so on being trailing, they will not get selected. So like global row you see is not appearing. The name seems correct, so it's probably that it's considered an auxiliary node and therefore we don't see it in there, but we're okay with that. So our graph seems in pretty good order. I would like to see what is going on with input config parameters these and config parameters there, and output here. So we need to make sure that that is not messing with us, like those nodes. So clear the search. Now, nope, not what I wanted, Maya. Okay. So spam the F key. You should get a single expansion and be good if they're all in the right component. That seems okay. I do have two config parameters. Do not love that. So this one is in anim. So this is something I was talking about. I think I mentioned it here and there. Where you go, okay, inputs wise, we're gonna say, tiers, I guess, of interface wise, we say we're always gonna have an input as the master of the house. Then we accept that we're not gonna have the guide and the controls in the same tier. Like to make the guide easy to install and remove into an existing component or from an existing component, we're gonna say that our interface, like our obligation for what goes into what, this has got to work one way only to avoid circularities. It's got to be like that. In here you're gonna have your mechanics, whatever they are. Not gonna spend an hour drawing this stuff. And then from that, from control, you basically have sort of two equally tiered, but we might decide to do otherwise, parts to your output when you're looking at these as a component based, functional, whatever you want to call it. One of them is the output itself, and that means that anything that needs to go to another component has to go through that. Let's get pretty colors. The other one I will say is the deformation. So that's your interface to the mesh, and I'm soon gonna give up. Okay, good, that worked. So, and if you think about it, that is basically another part of the interface. So that is how we're gonna format things, which means it's okay for the stuff that you have on the input to go into the guide, for the stuff that you have into the guide to go into the controls, and so on. Now the interesting bit is we have, as parts of these, we have the config panel and a few manipulators of sorts, so a few objects that you can select and manipulate. On control, like anything that goes on in here, if you have animation parameters, I would not expect those to be controlled by something else. The guide can take liberties because it gets processed and deleted before you publish the rig to go out to the big world. But if you want live guiding in a shot that's animated, which is, and I don't mean if somebody like literally the scene an animator is animating on, I mean you want animation to test what you're doing, it's generally a good idea to never overtake the anim parameters. So if something is a public interface, if something is something that's controllable, do not overtake it because you will need it to test things. Now, We're also saying that we have a config in here, which was the spur of the moment kind of thing. Normally I don't do these. And what I'm wondering now is, like, do we need different configs for the guide and the control part? When things are overlapping, does these, you know, control the other config? Not sold on it. It's a fair chunk of work. Well, not a lot, but without scripts, it's a fair chunk of work to transfer everything from one to the other. But everything I have in here, plant length, tarsi rest, toe length, toe rest, ankle rest, I would expect all of this stuff to come from our guiding process. I don't think we ever want to control that in shot with some automated tools. I don't think that an animator would want to mess with any of these, so ankle rest seems like it's not even used at all. No, it is. Is it? Is it not? Ankle rest seems useless. We're gonna keep it around, but I think ankle rest is derived, where we're going, okay, this is our foot, so the rest position for the ankle is now that. We might need it for this kind of guiding, where I actually have a lot of stuff hidden, don't I? When you, and I have unhooked a few things, but we might need some additional parameters when you do something like that. It's expected that this is a bit out of whack, because like right now it's assuming that it's going to be aligned to a word axis, and that's why if you go off axis, it's going to be a bit tricky. So let's not delete that. Again, boring string, guys, but occasionally you do have to recap, and I don't do that often enough, and you do have to take stock of what you're doing. So we'll keep it, but I don't love that they're there. Now, these config parameters, we had created it and we added everything to it, and we didn't use bugger all of it. Easy fix. Easy fix that I'm gonna save the scene before I do it kind of fix. So, and let's move that there. So that still seems to work. Yep, that's good. Our guide should still be working. Well, we've done very little work. We're cleaning up and making sure that we understand what is going on. That is, like, I'm seeing the thing pre-rolled. What was happening there is probably that when I hit that angle, we're saying that we're not gonna allow for a foot going that way. So when I hit that 0 angle, I'm not really accounting, as you can see, for these going that way. So if we're going from concave to convex or the other way around, I don't have an interest in that case, and it will complicate our guide. Pick your fights, especially if you have to stream the process. And it's okay. I reckon we are most of the way in componentizing these, and we might want to adjust some of our naming and stuff like that, but these does not. Do we do it? Do we not do it? I reckon we do it. I reckon we do it now, and we are done with it, so we don't confuse ourselves again. So we are gonna say that now. I don't love this. Normally, like, there will be tools to help so that you don't have to compromise these things. Control is 100% organizational. You could basically hide it in the outliner. So we don't care to rename that, because we should never have anything where this is needed in the graph. Same is true for guide. Config parameters and adding parameters, those are gonna go out to a lot of stuff. So let's say that we also do that. Row mechanics, this is just organizational. There's literally no other purpose to this being the way it is, so I don't feel like we have to care. Actually, let me ensure that we didn't do something silly and made it functional. No, it's organizational. And the rest seems to all be named. So what do we do next? I think that at this point, sorry, my daughter is being cute again. at this point, what do we get if we do this? I think we get all of the nodes we care about. We can undo the search. Seems comprehensive. I reckon we have our first component. There's a couple of decomposed metrics and stuff like that. I reckon we need to figure it out. No, I don't think so. Someone was asking, did she just say matrix? My wife suspects that we're rearing an artist. Who knows? It'd be terrifying. So that's interesting. Oh man. So this is another very interesting thing. See how you have that selection there? I don't know exactly what it's predicated on. It's like the stretch of the selection in the UI. If I shift select in the node editor like that, a bunch of stuff gets lost. Don't ask me why. I have not yet figured out all of the parameters of that selection bug. Mixing selection across node editor and the outliner. Like the node editor is basically keeping its own selection state to some extent to be helpful in some other cases, I guess. So when you do these, only things that are here in the node editor will actually remain in the selection. It will mess with you, and that is very annoying. Just know that it can happen. You know, it's one of the many idiosyncrasies, like unpolished rough edges, that you have to deal with. You could show auxiliary nodes in here, and you will see those as well, those UC nodes as well, but you will also see pretty much every node in hell and heaven. So we'll add them later. Enough chit chat about that. Asset editor. If you ever want to do UIs, this is another window that you should promptly replace, but it's not super terrible. So create asset with transform, no. Why would I want to create it with transform? Again, this is the part where you go like, once you get yourself a few scripts, you never see these windows again, and then you go like, okay, I would like to just create an asset. Is there no easier way? Scene assembly, definitely no. One asset, create asset. Okay, we should be okay with that. So this, I don't get it. I don't know why there isn't a create asset above create asset with transform here, but such are the ways of Maya. We are not given to know as common mortals. Thank you. And I think this is an outliner, though. This is mostly the same view that you have there, but some of the options can make it a bit sensitive to clicks. So again, watch out for it. But the global component is taken for the hierarchical view, which I'm okay with. For now, let's call it container. We'll figure out something for that. So for the record, like I have mentioned naming conventions in, I think it was the very first episode of the first season, of the pilot season, sorry. And I am not using in full the naming convention I normally use, so occasionally we bump into something. And that's by design. The one I use personally is mostly meant for like to be supported by the tools I use, and same for the one we use at work, and it will not work particularly well here. And like global component container, what I did not ask for these, I do not want to add that. I would only like, okay. And I think if you select in the node editor and then you add in the outliner, you should be okay. Select asset contents. No, I want to add to asset. So the test for these will be asset, select asset contents. So I guess, yeah, there you go, they're in. Or show auxiliary nodes and, you know, do away with that pain. right away. So it has included everything. I would say I probably want to edit these. So this is a bit of my tutorial on dealing with assets, I guess. And what was it? Because you can make an asset active, so when you create new stuff, they basically get added to the asset. Watch for it. If I remember right, it should be. Now, what else do I want to do here? Publishing, we'll do it later. We'll show it's just the view of it. Templates we don't really care a great deal about, not yet. I think we're good. I think that and this is just the publishing, which we're not gonna use yet. Oh, there you go. So current asset. Hello. So we're good on this one. We're probably not going to do the whole publishing thing. Should we? Should we not? Now we're good on this. Now, with clean and assetized ones, I really want to, Tom. I gotta say, I really want to kind of finish the asset. What do we do, chat? You vote on it. Do we actually finish it up with all the publishing, or do we leave it? I mean, we have sorted out the component and we've moved a couple things where they belong, so it's not like we didn't do work. Now the next one should be fairly simple, because this seems well named. But we did have, actually, so we have these badly named nodes. Do we have any others? Adding parameters role. Do not love these either. I suspect that that needs to go in the leg global asset. And it is probably not. Bad, we are bad. So these are doing work. And they are in the leg. So let's pin them. And let's go to fix. Know that we have to do with it. Sorry, just a sec. Yeah. What next? I reckon we do finish. Oh, okay, sorry, I get it. No, we have been good. We have been good people. These were properly named, and these are the actual set-driven key style kind of function curves. And this is literally animation, so it should not be in our asset because it's not gonna go out for the rig. This is literally the animation that's playing there. Okay, we're good. I am less concerned now. I'd say no response from chat, there's no preference, everybody's probably asleep at this point. So we move on to fixing the leg. What are we doing here? So this is the FK control. Okay, this is recent stuff, that's why it's all badly named. Yeah, fair enough, we're not super bad. I did rename a couple things and I'll go to these. So what we're doing here is the leg FK reparented in the space of the FK buffer. So that would actually not do what we wanted to do. I might have made a boo-boo there. So when I was showing, okay, we got the blending working, I did not have an offset like animation on these, and I reckon this is gonna be like the blending is gonna be slightly off, because I suspect that we actually need to take the first control. And this would be the inverse, I imagine. Yeah, I would expect that we should take the word inverse of the first control. Let's confirm. Yeah, see what is happening here. There is a boo-boo. This is blended. This is showing me what is going on, and it's blending to this to this thing here, in the space not of the controller board, but in the space of its buffer. So it's seeing the angle between this vector and that one basically, and you can tell that it's kind of like that, whereas what we want is a much shallower one. So there you go, this totally made it worth it. And now I will admit that I am surprised we made that boo-boo, because it's a pretty big one. It's a pretty obvious one as well. It should not have happened, but there you go, we have fixed it now. Missed the pole. No, the pole was very straightforward. It was like, do we finish in full the leg global and add all the publishing attributes and so on, or do we leave that for another time and move on to the leg? So I started debugging the leg instead. It's not a very important pole. I think at this point we're gonna roll with leg. We might as well finish cleaning it up and naming it. Again, our main intention here is a recap, take stock, clean up so that we can move on. So what we're doing here is FK01 is FK02 in the context of FK01, let's say, and this is definitely in the leg, no doubt about it. We'll say that this is FK02 reframed 01, not a super great name, but we'll take it. And we are interested in the output type, which is a matrix, and this is its conversion to SRT. We are only using the rotate, so I'm tempted to say, just to be clear, what its intended use is. It would actually not, like the translation part of this wouldn't be, of this node wouldn't be terribly useful. Is there the shaky thing? No. I'm trying to remember if there was a shaky thing at some point in some of the node editors in Maya. And if you don't know it's shake, and I think you picked it up when you shook something, like when you shook a node fast enough, it will disconnect it from the rest. So moving on. This is the blend. The FK01 control is taking the word matrix straight up. So I think we can pretty much be very explicit about that one and just go word matrix. Like heap rotation, sure. Is it connected to anything? Because if it's not, it should be connected to the word. Whoa. Okay, not super bad. Oh, I have pinned the nodes, that's why it's not super bad. Leg heap rotation, yeah. Sure, we can take it. We can deal with this. Now, leg left. What have we got here? I'd say we do, before that actually, let's be good. No, I don't want that, leave me alone. I want just a simple graph. And we do these work as well. Control we don't care about, we said it's organizational only. And do I have that? Yes. So I have shortcuts to expand everything. I suggest you get them as well. Like being able to collapse and expand in the outliner with shortcuts is very useful. I really recommend you do it. And I don't know why I don't think they come in by default. Shift clicking, not the same thing. So this seems good to me. Leg diagnostic. We're using that. Do we still need it? Let's have a look. Let us have a look. No, we're not using it. Take away this thing from me. I do not want to see it, Maya. Also, sure, bring in a new node. I mean, I have something here, I have something here. The most logical position for a new node to be brought in is completely off screen. Yep, well done. I reckon we don't keep CRUD around until we need it. Also, chat, you need to remind me to save, because this could be a disaster. who knows what could have happened. So we good? We might be good. Let's see what we get. If we 0, then 1 it. So these are all organizationals, therefore we care not for them. The initial shading group is just obtrusive. What can you do about it? Leg global, God node. So this is the expected input, this is the legal input, this is everything that goes on in there. This time one is shared across everything. Config, there you go, we have a config. We might want to deal with that, config and anim parameters. We say that we're gonna alter our naming convention slightly. I reckon we should do it right away. Nope. And we're almost done here, I reckon, for the day. And it's also, come on, capitalize. Not that aggressively. If you guys have questions, please put them in, because I reckon that as soon as we're done with these, if there are no questions, we'll call it. Boring but good work being done today. So the config stuff, elsewhere we have decided it belongs to the guide. What have we put in here that we're using? Tibia length and femur length, which makes sense. So we don't have a guide yet here, and we do want to get one. Overwhelming public demand, so we start on that. Organizational, so we don't need the whole shenanigans of adding the component name. I like these to stand out. Like guide the form control, I would like them to still stand out and not get lost. I think this is good. I think we can make this work. Let's componentize these. So this seems fine. Yeah, seems fine. Seems legit. So create asset. Actually, what are the options? I've forgotten. Shapes, sure. Include hierarchy. Sure, we're still flat at the point. Watch that. Include hierarchy can bite you something fierce. If you had everything parented under something like an Uber rig kind of organizational node, yeah, it can be interesting. It can be interesting. So shapes below, above, all below and above. I reckon that the way we have these, the hierarchy below, you know, it can spare us from some pain if we forgot something. Okay. Preview contents. Oh, I forgot these existed. I don't know if it's new. Selection transform. Don't need that. Okay. Sorry if this is slow going and stuttering, but like this is the part where you want to be meticulous and diligent, so I can't rush through these. Preview contents. What are you gonna do if I do nothing? Nothing interesting. I guess it will open a window or something. So I am good. I shall keep these as is. Now that we have it, where is the other container? Did it add? Oh no, okay. I can hear a lot of humming noise in my headphones, line monitor mode, so I don't know what is going on. One of my case fans might be working overtime. I say we save and we stop here. I am probably gonna do the God node and the foot off stream, because it seems like a bit of a waste of time to do. Like as a recap and looking at the components that are interesting enough, like the foot roll, the leg global, and the leg, I think, you know, it's worth doing it maybe. I don't feel like it is worth doing the same for everything. It's just at this point, this is, you know, this is road work. It's quicker to just do it in silence without the stream. So I reckon we're good. I reckon we call it on this for today. Short stream. Chill. We do have one question, which is, I was practicing building an IK arm using a similar expression to yours. Sometimes I don't get a redraw when zeroing values in the channel box or undoing. The time node is connected. Have you noticed anything like that going on? Yeah, it can happen. So it's not necessarily zeroing in and of itself. Now, if you are in parallel mode, and I assume you are, again, it's preferences, animation. So if you have parallel mode on, you can try and turn to DG and see if it still happens. I will put money on it not happening any longer. DG tends to be, and we'll go over how evaluation works and all of that. Yeah, turn it just for check. Like, you should be in parallel, but just to check, put it in DG, see if it still happens. Now, there's one important thing to know about parallel, especially when you get odd updates. Now, undo, it can be finicky. Sometimes you need to force the redraw. One of the things you can do is, like, if you scroll the timeline, see if it updates. It probably will, because the time will push through. Now, there's an important thing that you need to know about parallel mode. When you start getting a complex enough rig, you will start getting the odd glitch here and there. And that is, I'm not, because I'm working on something very simple, and, you know, we're like extremely methodical and slow because of what we're doing. But if you want to test your rig in parallel mode, what you really need to do is just check submission DG. Okay, so I'll finish that, because that might be a different thing then. Put keyframes on a few of your controls, and we'll discuss evaluation this season. But what is basically going on is, in parallel mode, when the graph is walked to figure out what is going on, the DG evaluation is used, and that is basically just figuring out what is firing and what isn't. A different graph, which is called the EG, the evaluation graph, is built somewhere else for the parallel evaluation manager to evaluate. Now, one of the parameters that determines what nodes, and that becomes a static graph, there's no, you know, change in dirtying and stuff like that. It's the EG that the EM gets in parallel mode is fairly static by design, because, you know, if you want parallelism, it's kind of a trade-off that you have to make. And one of the parameters, the most important parameters, is that something is animated. So if you have function curves attached to something, like in this case, if I keyed my IK control, as the graph gets walked, that thing is now gonna fire off that it's hot, and basically flag a lot of nodes as you need to evaluate, so that they get added to the evaluation graph, so that they do get flagged for evaluation and all of that. If you have a rig that is completely not animated, you're still authoring it and all of that, it's okay. But if you get a glitch confirmed by doing that, by animating a good chunk of that component, this is one of the reasons why I'm saying don't take over anim controls, because you might have legitimate glitches that you will not see unless you actually keyframe those things, or vice versa. So this is not really something that I want to discuss too much right now. We will get into evaluation, but if you're working in parallel mode and you're getting those glitches, you kind of need to know. Now, if you are getting them in DG and it's intermittent, but when you move the timeline, it always fixes itself. Most of the time it's some sort of circularity in my experience. So you might have a node going out and re-entering. Remember when we had that weird manipulation? that is a plainly obvious circularity, because you have something that's feeding into itself and eventually will shoot to infinity. But you have some more subtle ones. So I will look at your graph and I will try and figure out if you have ends, if you can sever the ends of that graph so you can get a chunk and see if you still get the problem in that chunk. There might be bugs. What version of Maya is that, by the way? Because there are bugs in Maya. I mean, it's a massive piece of software that's been going on for 2 decades. There's all kind of like dusty corners, so you might have bumped into a legitimate bug. That's always an option. What else? You could look at, I'm not an expression expert, I use them to prototype or to teach, but that's about it. 2018, more likely my error to look, I always assume when something doesn't work, I always assume it's my error first, because getting a bug fixed is gonna take a long time. So you gotta, and if you want to even get it fixed at all, like you still have to report it with repro steps and all. So yeah, do the due diligence. I would say if it happens in DG, then you know that you don't necessarily need the keyframes. I will try and put them in there and see what happens. All that it might be doing is that it will dirty your DG more often, so you might still not be fixing the root cause. And the next step I would take is sever a chunk of that graph, see if it still happens, undo that severing, sever wider until you can get it to reproduce. The problem with intermittent stuff like the one you're having, where it just at some point happens, is that it's a pain in the back to reproduce, because you could be severing and you play with it for a while, nothing happens, and you go like, okay, so this part of the graph is fine, but no, it just happens that you didn't get that intermittent bug for the time you were testing it, but your problem is still in that subsection. It's a female dog. I think beach, you can say beach on YouTube actually without cracking the PG-13. Thanks to Alanis Morissette, who established that that means female dog. Alright, so I reckon that's it for this one. Thanks everybody for watching, and if you are on the stream or watching this as they come out, have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.